Welcome to my Dreams in the Witch House review. Let's get right to the obvious question here. What the heck is this game? Like a lot of games these days, it's kind of hard to pin this one down to one particular genre, but the most upfront and striking thing about it is its appearance. It is clearly a pixel art or a pixel graphics game, but what does that even mean, right? All video games are in the end pixel art if you think about it. And more to the point, so is anything you watch on a flat panel TV. They even tell you how many pixels you're getting when you purchase a TV now. But generally, they don't want you to see the pixels. Whereas these throwback games intentionally lower the resolution, so you can notice the blocky polygons that create the characters and the environments they inhabit. So that's the easy definition. A pixel art game is any game where you're constantly aware of the pixels. I personally don't have much experience with recent throwback pixel art games because I'm an old fart Gen Xer who had to actually play low-res games back in the day, like the 1990s Lord of the Rings Volume 1 by Interplay. Games like that weren't trying to look pixelated. They had no choice due to the technological limitations at the time. I remember I never finished that game because it had some serious bugs and always crashed and froze just as I reached the Barrow Downs or somewhere thereabouts. Apparently there was an update or a fix back in the day you could get your hands on, but I actually did not have an internet connection at the time. And I don't think the MS-DOS PC I was playing it on had a modem even. Imagine that. No internet connection, no modem, Ethernet jack, no Wi-Fi, nothing. Told you I was kind of old. I guess what I would have had to have done back then is order the update or the patch from the nearest Babbage's. For all you young whippersnappers, that's what GameStop was called in the ancient historical era of the 1980s and 1990s. Or order it through the mail or something. Or I guess I could have gone to a friend's house, someone I knew who did have an internet connection, and download it from, I don't know, the Interplay website, if such a thing even existed back then. And then I'd have to copy it onto a floppy disk and take it back to my house and try to install the patch and so on. Anyway, the point of that little memory lane detour is that this game definitely got the nostalgia thing going for me, which I suppose is the whole purpose and charm of these pixel art games, to take old farts like me back to the glory days of their youth when they wanted to smash their PCs for constantly freezing up on them. So while I get that people like these games, I don't really feel a great need to play these pixel art games most of the time because, frankly, I've had my fill of them. I've done my pixelated time, man. Maybe it makes me a snob, but I'm more than ready most of the time to move on to higher res 4K and ray trace games like The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk. Nowadays, I'd prefer to admire the realistic curves on characters like Ciri and Yen rather than imagine the blocky thing I'm looking at is female. So with that being the case, that being my preference, why the heck did I even download and play this game? In a word, Lovecraft. Provided I have room on my gaming schedule or gaming calendar, I'll play pretty much any game based on his stories. But before we get into the Lovecraft stuff, let's talk some more about what kind of game Dreams in the Witch House really is. A lot of old pixel art games were isometric with a more or less top-down camera view, and sort of therefore faux 3D in a sense. And Dreams in the Witch House is also sort of faux 3D as well, because you can move up and down and back and forth within the seemingly 2D locations that you're looking at, that Walter is traveling through. But obviously the camera perspective was not top-down, but rather fourth wall. It was kind of like a TV show. In fact, while playing this game, I couldn't help but think of watching old TV shows like The Honeymooners or All in the Family, or any number of sitcoms or TV series that had a limited handful of sets or scenes you as a viewer got used to seeing the characters roam around in and converse in. This game just kind of has that claustrophobic feel like you're watching a TV show, as opposed to a more sweeping and theatrical game like The Witcher 3, where you feel as though you're watching a blockbuster movie or some grand saga unfold before your eyes. It's probably mostly the pixelation throwback thing, but I also think it has a lot to do with repeatedly visiting the same familiar settings all the time, like you do when you watch a TV show. The Steam page for Dreams in the Witch House, of course, lists the genres and incorporates into its gameplay, and it curiously ranks RPG as one of the top ones. When I think of this game, I really don't think of RPG at all. Now, there are some oddball attributes you enhance and increase, like exams and your math rating and such, so it does have some RPG-like aspects to it, but frustratingly, they reset to 0 when you access and employ them by taking an exam. Okay. Exam rating is down to nothing. They don't level or raise up and maintain an upward trajectory unless you undergo some tragic draining effect or encounter, like with a normal RPG. Farther down the list is survival, and way down on the list is puzzle game. But those are the two categories that more readily come to mind for me when attempting to describe this game. Now, I perform terribly with regards to these two facets of Dreams in the Witch House gameplay, and you can go ahead if you haven't already and watch my series to see how exactly poor I performed in this respect. Suffice to say, I think I barely scratched the surface in uncovering this game's many secrets and hidden areas, and a replay is definitely in order. Hopefully a replay where I don't suck at playing it so much. Getting back to the Lovecraft bit, I've got a few series under my belt now as an LP gamer. 18 in total, I think, or somewhere thereabouts. Most of which I've actually completed. Sure, I've taken my sweet time with almost all of them. Detractors who like rapid-fire uploads might argue. But 18 playlists and hundreds of episodes later, I think maybe I've earned the right to assume I might just have something valuable to say about the video games I choose to play. Okay, you might find yourself responding as you watch this review video, but what about the Lovecraft-inspired games? How many of those have you played, Planet Evans, and what gives you the right to bloviate away about them? Maybe this is a little self-serving, but I think that's an interesting question with an interesting term incorporated into it, and that term would be Lovecraft-inspired. Ostensibly, the answer to your question is a measly couple of them. Only two, in fact. Dagon and Dreams in the Witch House, which both take their titles and plot lines straight from Lovecraft's original stories. They're not just Lovecraft-inspired, they're wholly Lovecraft derivative. However, if we consider games that I think have been influenced by Lovecraft, rather than outright and obvious adaptations of his tales, then the number grows considerably. After all, what is the Slender Man if not a being straight out of a cosmic horror tale? He's got tentacles or something. He has tentacles. There's like tentacles behind him. And I'm not the only one who feels this way, if you think I'm starting to skip a mental gear here or something. What about the Bloodsucker from Stalker? What does he remind you of? Or the Brainsucker in Bloodborne? How about the bosses and other enormous horrors in Bloodborne? Do they remind you of something? What about kaiju horror in general? Does it, as a genre, not draw from Lovecraft's nightmarish visions of giant monsters rising from the depths and the deep, especially in August Derleth's versions of the Cthulhu myths? What I'm getting at here is Lovecraft is a lot more influential than most of us realize. I'd even say Tolkien, yes, Tolkien, since I brought up one of the video games based on his tales, drew influence from him when imagining creatures like Ungoliant and the Watcher in the Water at the gates of Moria. And, as Gandalf put it, older and fouler things than orcs living in the deep places of the world. I mean, that is a line straight from a Lovecraft story. Do we know for a fact that the professor read the Cthulhu mythos or the Dream Cycle? No, I don't think so. But we do know he read Robert E. Howard's Conan stories and liked them, apparently. And Lovecraft fans will, of course, know Howard was a good friend of H.P. Lovecraft. So my Lovecraft gaming experience might just run a little deeper than you realize at first. This game did a great job with capturing that quaint and innocent New England village setting with the foreboding and dark secret lurking beneath the surface we're all used to getting ready to dive into when cozying up under the covers in a cold autumn or winter evening and cracking open one of Howard Phillips's books. But I gotta say, the pixelation does something to thwart the cosmic horror that, when we read his stories, we feel oozing right out of the pages as we squirm in our beds and look furtively at creaky closet doors and dark rain-soaked windows. Something got lost in the translation there, for me anyway. Now, there certainly were disturbing moments, such as the ending I got, which, spoiler alert, was quite similar to the original Tales ending, but with Walter rather than the witch and Brown Jenkin being the ones who sacrificed the kidnapped child. And despite the pixels, the Atom Brain devs certainly managed some impressive and awe-inspiring scenery, which I think accurately portrayed what Lovecraft wanted us to picture in our minds as we read, such as the Cyclopean city bit. But what I'm getting at here is I'm not so sure pixel art is the way to go when depicting cosmic horror in a video game. I'll leave it up to you guys in your comments, so you can tell me how you feel about that assessment. It's just a thought that I kept having when playing this game. I'm not saying I'm right. Maybe I wasn't interpreting what I was watching properly. And of course, video game producers just can't help themselves these days. Even when portraying a nearly 100% white 1920s New England. That aside, this game was fun to play and the characters were memorable, especially irascible old Mrs. Dombrowski, the consummate standard old crotchety landlady. It's a shame I didn't get very far in this game, so let me do a little griping and get to what I'd like to see in the future from these game devs. This game entailed a whole lot more and lasted much longer than I thought it would. I had no idea at the start that I'd get 15 episodes out of it. I thought maybe 1 or 2. And it actually delayed me starting my Vampire the Masquerade Bloodline series by nearly a year. Now, I'm a slow gamer, so, that's not terribly surprising. By the way, that Bloodline series should start soon here on my gaming channel, so keep an eye out for it if it interests you. With that depth in mind, though, I think only having 2 months to get Walter's daily routine streamlined and dynamic enough to get somewhere in a fairly intricate game isn't terribly fair. That may or may not be accurate to the timeline in Lovecraft's fiction. I can't remember, but still, most players probably need more time. Also, some hint or mention of May Eve being the drop-dead date of completion would have been nice. If I recall correctly, it's called Walpurgis Night or Walpurgis Night in the original story, and even if I had equated them in my mind, I don't know that I would have put 2 and 2 together that it meant the end of the game. So personally, I needed a reminder anyway. And the setting seems cramped, as mentioned previously, like a TV show's canned environment. Only being able to adventure through Arkham by clicking on a few sites on a map is a little underwhelming and disappointing. I would love to see, since the ending seemed to hint the development team would be revisiting the game, an open world, or at least an open city, I guess, version of Arkham, where we get to walk through the streets, over the bridges, crossing the Miskatonic, and visit the odd places on the map that don't seem to have much explanation. Now, I know that means a whole hell of a lot more work for the devs, I get it, but it would have been really fun to be able to roam around Arkham more freely, and in a way, discover things a bit more accidentally. And here's my absolute pie-in-the-sky, wish upon a star, cross my heart and hope to die, stick a sharp stick in some... Okay, I think I got off the wishful thinking track there with a few of those cliches. Must have been the eldritch forces overcoming me like they did Walter. Here's my dream game I'd absolutely love to see come out of Atom Brain's studios. An open world, or open city, version of Shadow over Innsmouth. Open up the game with a cutscene that has the rickety old bus winding around the shore road, and us stepping off it after a look at the driver's strange appearance, then just cut us loose, and let us wander through the dreary and disturbing streets of Innsmouth, until, well, everyone should know what the until part entails, a lot of trouble and danger for the main character. That would be beyond awesome, Atom Brain devs, if you ever happen to watch this, and I'd even forgive the pixelation. All right, everyone, tried to keep that one short and sweet. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you got something out of this, even if you disagree with me, and I will see you in the next upload.